Hi, this is Bob. Been working on these Heathkit SS9000s for quite some time now. Built the very first one in 1980. It was 1981, November of 1981. And believe it or not, this is it right here. And I just got this one going. I had opportunity to obtain this unit not too long ago and got it back together here just about a week ago, and got it working. I had to repair something on every circuit board. But what I wanted to show you here this morning was HFO alignment, among other things. And I'm set up here for HFO alignment. Now if you read in the manual, they tell you to go around onto the controller side and connect to connector 105, I believe it is, on the controller board. And then you open up this side and do your adjusting over here on the HFO board. Well, then you've got the thing, you have to put the unit on its side and open up both sides of it. And when you do that, then it's rather a hard thing to do, working on both sides of the rig at the same time like that. So I came up with this solution. I just unplugged this cable here, which goes into socket 201 there. That's the control voltage for the HFOs. So then I made up a jumper here, little jumper connector, which allows me to connect two phono plugs together. There's a short phono plug then, just this little blue one here, that goes over and plugs into the board. And then this clip lead. I've got a meter over here, and believe it or not, I have been using this little meter that I got at Harbor Freight. I think it was $5.95, and I find it's very accurate. Compares with my my Heathkit VTVM here, right on the money. So I use this for alignment, and by doing this you can set the rig down like this. I've got a small cardboard box back here to keep this main TR board up like that. Just a little box, so you could use a coffee cup or something, would work just fine. And then the first thing you adjust is the 80-meter coil, and you adjust that for 4.5 volts. So I've got that connected here, and as you can see, it shows the adjustment quite well as I swing it through. So you just turn that for 4.5 volts on 80 meters. That's the first step on your alignment of the HFO coils on the TR board. So there we go, right on the money, 4.50. Anyhow, I wanted to show you this little gadget here and how easy that makes the HFO alignments so that you can get to them. And then the accuracy of this little meter, I was really surprised, and it does not load down the circuit. I have put the vacuum tube voltmeter on the circuit, and then put this on and read the same thing. And then I put them both on at the same time and read the same thing. So it does not affect the circuit that much. This meter does not load down the circuit very much at all, being a digital meter. That's really nice. So I wanted to show you that. And the cheap little meters like that, I like them, because hey, if you burn one up, you can buy another one real cheap. A lot cheaper than getting them repaired. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you about this Heathkit SS9000 is these screws. These are the screws that they screw the circuit boards in with, and they do that here on the audio board and on the other side on the controller board. On the controller board is where the problem arises, because the spacers that they use, the threaded spacers, they're threaded on both ends, and they have these screws which are 3/8 of an inch long on both sides of that threaded spacer. Well, what happens? The circuit board gets its ground from those spacers, and these screws are long enough that they bottom out in the spacer and they don't tighten the board down. So you got a board that's rattling around. The solution is very simple. I put a couple of lock washers under the head of each screw, and then I got everything tightens down nicely. But I put that circuit board in and I ran the radio for a little while, the 9000, and then it just cut out. So I wanted to show you that. Be sure you put lock washers under the heads of those screws on the controller board. Another thing I wanted to talk about is batteries. I've forgotten to change the batteries on mine a couple of times, and I did not have any bad problems. But I have gotten, I did have one SS9000, and I already made a video on that, on how badly it was damaged by the batteries. So change those batteries, guys. And what I use is the Energizer Ultimate Lithium. I have no interest in the company at all, other than I like their batteries. This one here is dated 2036 as the shelf life. They should last the shelf life in the SS9000 because all it needs is just, I don't know, microamps of current to maintain the memory. Now when you put your batteries in, I have had a problem with this silvery color cover here. Is conductive on some of these, and I don't know if the Energizers are or not, but it's a very, very thin piece of plastic, and the battery clamps hold really tight, and they can puncture that and cause a short circuit. So I wrap 2 or 3 wraps of ordinary Scotch tape around the battery, right in the center where the clamps are, so that when I snap them in, there cannot possibly be a short circuit, because those sharp little clamps can cut right through this plastic, and like I say, you get a short circuit on the batteries and you're wondering why your memory is not being withheld anymore or working properly. So change the batteries and wrap them with Scotch tape. I use a piece of old carpet here to work on because this happens. See all these scratches? That's from putting this rig onto a wooden workbench. And this one here was the first one built. It was then retained as a test unit at Heathkit Laboratory and was used for years and years as a test unit. So it got slid around on that workbench over and over and over. So a piece of carpet on the workbench will keep you from doing that, and that's true with any rig that you're working on, or any piece of equipment for that fact. And when you're working on these rigs and you're putting ICs in and out, be sure and use a ground strap. I've got a 3 meg ohm resistor here, and I have the other end of this is connected to the electrical ground over there, the conduit. My wiring here in the shop is in conduit, and so I have a little wire underneath the center screw on the electrical outlet box there, which is metal, and then that connects to this 3 meg ohm resistor here with, I got a banana plug on there so I can take it off on a wire, and then I just clip this thing here on my watch right there on my wrist. There's my ground strap. Be sure and do that. There's a lot of CMOS components in the SS9000, and you can fry them with a little bit of static electricity, especially in the winter time. Okay, cleaning the rotary switches. The rotary switches on these are made to self-clean, but if you don't use them a lot, they don't get cleaned, and then you have intermittent operation. And they're not really bad, they just need to be cleaned. And what I do is I put a little bit of deoxit or a similar onto the switches. Now these have got those white wafer switches. You can put a tiny bit of deoxit onto a jeweler screwdriver, slip it through the little slots on the white wafer switches. And a lot of times it doesn't even need that. A lot of times you don't need to do anything. But I found that the band switches on these go clear around. So you can go round and round and round, turn them like 50 times one way and 50 times another way. And when you do that, you may find that everything starts working again. It's not intermittent again. So they will cut out. And the switches that do that is the band switch, the pass band shift switch, and your upper sideband, lower sideband CW switch. So when you're running your rig, before you turn it on, click each one of those about 10 times around. Now these won't go clear around, these over here, but you can run them end to end about 10 times. You can hear the difference in that passband shift. So you should do that with those switches to keep them in good operating condition. Okay, and a static discharge on the antenna jack. I do recommend, and I haven't installed it on this one yet, but a 100,000 ohm resistor from the center of the coax here to the ground connection, which is right there, from one to the other. I'm going to put a 100,000 ohm 1 watt resistor there. That will not affect the receive or the transmit at all, but that will bleed off static that gathers up on your dipole antennas and can damage things in your SS9000. So 100,000 ohm resistor there from the center of the coax to ground on that SO239 connector. And the phono connectors are a problem. This one here was a problem. I could wiggle it and I could see it moving around. So I just take my little I pull it out, pull the connector out, and take your little needle nose pliers and just gently squeeze it a little bit there to tighten it up. And if the one in the center is loose, then you have to take this shield off, and then, of course, with the rig turned off, remove the connector here, and you can get down inside there and you can slip this dental pick in behind the connector connection there and push it a little bit to the center. You only have to do it just a few thousandths of an inch if it is intermittent, and you're back in business again. Okay, and what else here? Be very careful when you're working on these. The vacuum fluorescent tube here has got a little glass piece that sticks out through the back of the circuit board, and it's very easy to be working on that and stick a tool down in there or something and push on that little glass piece, and you can ruin that fluorescent display. And I did that with one, and I looked and I looked and I looked, and those things are impossible to find. So be very, very careful when you're working on that front panel and working around that fluorescent display. So that's it. Those are my tips for the SS9000. If I get some more, I'll put those on too. So everybody, keep warm. It's very cold here now. It's in the middle of the winter time, and it's a good time to work on the rigs during the cabin fever time. 73s, everyone, and good DX.